Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're going to be playing some Warhammer 2 Total War Online battles. I've been out a week, and am now back playing some more multiplayer. Decided to see how the meta was shaking out in terms of the Vampire Coast play, and kind of the counterplay from the enemy faction. So when I was playing online, every time I would pick the Vampire Coast, the general counterpick seemed to be the Vampire Counts. And I thought that was interesting, so played a couple rounds, and it seems like kind of the go-to build for the Vampire Counts was going to be something along the lines of what my opponent is bringing here, which is essentially try and control the air. So here he's brought a standard von Karstein Vampire Lord mounted on Terrorgeist with Vargeist. Typically, you might even see a second Terrorgeist and some more Fellbats, or even a pair of Vargeist. But essentially, the main play for the counter build is going to be to take control of the air in order to deny the use of deck droppers, which are very, very good from Vampire Coast. And so that's generally the play here. My opponent hasn't gotten too heavy in the investment. He's just got 2 units, which may be enough. If I had a couple deck droppers, he could chase them off and destroy them with the Vargeist pretty much with ease. And we'll see kind of what my counter pick has been. But anyways, like I said, the main goal is to dominate the skies here. Have a big beefy main line of just throwaway skeletons backed up by various Graveguard units. And in the back, he does also have a corpse cart. So this plus any resurrected undead, or raised dead I should say, is going to be enough to really swamp your main line and try and take it out. Skeleton spearmen here are also shielded, so if I did have a gun line, they would be able to absorb a fair amount of that. And this is just going to be to overwhelm your gun lines and take it out. The main way to take out the Vampire Coast seems to be going wide, so the zombies are one of the main factions that can go wide. Another critical component of the build is going to be to bring something that's fast to get around and presumably hit your artillery or any range units you have in your squishy backside. So my opponent has brought several units for that. The Dire Pack here, Regiment Renowned unit, and then a Hex Wraiths unit, so they're going to be going around my flank. He also has another mounted force that you're going to be seeing pushing on the right, Varix Reavers. So relatively scary. I've been beat a fair amount of times by an enemy force wielding this build. And it seemed like every time I went against it, just bringing any combination of different guns or trying to play super turtley with the guns just didn't work out too well. So I was trying to think around what I wanted to do. And so what I figured is, hey, if the enemy is going to try and, contest the air, then I'm going to bring Luther Archon. And you can see him here with the, not quite sure what the lore is for getting a barnacle-encrusted Terrorgeist, but he has one. So anyways, that's going to be my strategy, to bring 2 of these. So this is about like 3.4k of gold. This is another 2k of gold. And that's a pretty big investment, but it's going to give me complete control of the air, especially in this scenario where he has just 1 Terrorgeist and a Vargeist unit. So already I can beat him. And all of that is going to be to gain control of the air in order to allow my deck droppers here with, they're going to be carrying some zombies with muskets. Again, a very hilarious unit, but super useful. You're seeing a lot of them in multiplayer builds. So very mobile, they can do a lot of good damage, especially if they can focus fire on lords or get around the back of units like Graveguard, shoot into their rear. So very, very useful. So anyways, I'm getting control of the air in order to use these guys as a platform for sniping key units. So that's absorbed a lot of my money. So with the rest of my force, I'm going to be kind of holding back. So I have 2 of these cheap zombie mobs with polearms. Very, very useful unit. You'll be seeing them in almost every build. Just very cost effective at holding the line and being anti-large. They can help rebuff cavalry charges or monster charges. So one of them is here, backed up by some Mourngolds, just in the woods here, and they're probably going to retreat, but I was going to have them here to catch maybe cavalry or anything that advanced too quickly. And then another one on the right hand side, so that's going to be defending my flanks. And then in the center, I only have, a depth guard unit. So overall, just 3 infantry unit, 2 of the polearm zombies, and 1 depth guard with a single Chev. Not very much there. Monsters are going to be backing me up, as you saw here. Mourngolds, and then the Rotting Prometheans. The Rotting Prometheans are going to be a good pick in this engagement because they have a lot of armor. And the enemy chaff units really don't have much armor piercing. So these guys can hold out almost indefinitely against hordes of zombies and skeletons. So they're going to be doing really good. And having large mobs of enemies surrounding a single entity or a small group of units is going to be kind of key to my strategy, because what I've also brought is going to be a bloated corpse. Bloated corpses are cool, single entity units that you can throw at the enemy and they explode, but you have to get really close, and the enemy normally can try and snipe them with ranged fire or magic. In this case, I only have to worry about magic when it comes to the vampire count, so we'll see how it turns out. But what I was thinking is, because I have, you know, these rotting Prometheans, or I have this lord here that can wade into combat and get surrounded by tons of enemies, I figured, hey, that's a good opportunity for me to pull out this bloated corpse, toss him in, and nuke everything that was kind of around my fleet captain or the Promethean. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, that's going to be my strategy. And the depth guard here, I have to use a little bit carefully. They can trade against enemy grave guards, but what you'll probably want to use them for initially is just going to be trying to chew through the chaff very, very quickly, like a hot knife through butter. These guys will chew through zombies and skeletons really, really quickly. And in those types of engagements, any minor scratches that they take, they'll just heal up while they're in combat. And then eventually they'll turn to the they'll turn to the grave guard, but when they do so, I want to make sure they're reinforced so that they stay on the battlefield as long as possible and benefit as much as possible from that regen. So that's the play. And as the battle unfolds, I see that my enemy really doesn't have too much in terms of his sky control, so I could come forward and just immediately come at him with these two Terrorgeists, sick my lord against his lord, sick my other Terrorgeist against his Vargeist, immediately snipe his lord and his pair of flyers, which is, you know, if this was a competitive play, immediately you win the air, you win that engagement, take him out, and then the enemy's going to have a real uphill climb against you with no real way to reinforce that. So that's something I could have done. So by just virtue of the build that you pick, you can pretty effectively counter them vampires, which is why you're usually seeing them with a lot of flyers to prevent that from happening, or putting their lords on the ground. I was going to be a little bit more of a gentleman this fight, didn't want to go for the immediate lord snipe, and so what I'm going to be doing mostly is just telling him, hey, I'm here, I can deal with you, and I'm just going to zone him out with my flyers. So here, getting a shot off. He does have Flock of Doom to try and do some preliminary damage against me, but it's going to be relatively superfluous. So I'm just going to be here to zone him out. Like I said, don't try and snipe him just yet. And in the meantime, I'm just going to make sure that he's kept at arm's breadth, and that's going to allow me to do a couple things. One is dispatch one of my deck droppers here in pursuit of his Dire Pack Wolves. So they're going to be trying to snipe them uncontested. I have to keep up with them, which is going to be a little tough. And then I'm going to be shuffling around with my units to try and prevent this attack in the rear. And then what I've also done by scaring these lords out to the flank with the Terrorgeist and the deck droppers is I've isolated his corpse cart, which is going to be key to keep his main line up and running. So I'm going to pop the Horn Swaggle here, reducing his armor and melee defense, come in with Luther Harkon, and look how punishing that engagement was. 1 strike, 2 strikes, a third, and yeah, he's already down to half health. So before the enemy can even come around to the support, I've already pretty much chewed through this corpse cart. So that is the benefit of having control of the air and having these high DPS units just able to destroy the corpse cart before the enemy can do anything to react, and I take it back to the air. So we're not only lords of the sea, we're lords of the air. But this does mean that the enemy can pounce on me, so he's going to try and do just that, swarming around. I do catch his Dire Pack here with my Prometheans and these dogs against crabs. Usually you would think on paper, hey, the dogs will win this, but this is no ordinary gaggle of crabs. I don't know what you call a group of crabs. A clutch of crabs, perhaps? But yeah, they're going to be making mincemeat of these dogs. And effectively guarding my flanks. With the pole arms as well, that's been enough to dissuade further attacks. And now up through the center, I'm going to continue to just chew through his guys. Terrorgeists are going to be coming through the Sternsman. And the enemy has decided to just continue to push on my main line, not really having much that he can do to counter this. He could pull back with his Skeleton Spearmen and other units, and he does have some cavalry coming out of the woods that were hidden to me. A little bit of a trap he may have set up there, but I'm going to be able to take to the sky again after doing a fair amount of damage. These guys will heal through it, but I did want to at least start to get them down low. And meanwhile, my deck droppers continuing to snipe away at key units. Graveguard here. And then over in the back, the enemy is really keen on getting rid of my zombie pirates, dropping another Flock of Doom on it. And then circling around back. But now my flyers are going to come right through the center. And this is where I'm going to hold firm, fly up over the top of my army, and we will let the enemy wash over us. And now finally I'm going to start to pick apart at the enemy, start to have my jet droppers target him. I figured at this point it's not so much of a Lord Strike. He's come within range of my guys. He's come into my zone of control, and I don't feel so bad now for trying to stick it to him. I gave it an attempt to engage in battle. And the way I'm going to be doing that now is by combating in the main line here. I could just retreat with my entire army and snipe his guys. Again, going to be a little bit more of a gentleman. So sending in the zombie pirates into the mix, the depth guard here to chew through these skeleton spearmen, and then my Morngul's also lurking around back to try and reinforce various units. Debuffing these guys with my fleet captain. And he's going to be waiting into the mix to cut these guys up with his cutlass. The Morngul's also going to be dispatched here. Let's watch them clean up these spearmen. So both of these in combination are going to be excellent for tearing through the enemy main line. Meanwhile over here, my jet droppers are getting a bit more aggressive. Going to be continuing to snipe away at this Lord. Plucking away at the Vargeist as well while they're at it. Promethean's going to be getting into the mix. Normally these guys, the enemy here, skeleton spearmen, are anti-large, but they don't really have armor piercing, so my Prometheans, again, going to really prove their worth in this engagement. And here comes my bloating corpse. Like I said, I was going to look for opportunities where the enemy had really circled up. And they're doing that just here. I have a unit that I raised dead for right here that is in, basically, it's on a countdown. So it should time out pretty soon, which is going to leave a single vampire fleet captain in the mix. And so what that means is, hey, it's go time. So I'm going to go ahead here and take a look at this. Graveyard with 84 men, skeleton spearman with 103. And let's see how this turns out as he is going to start to come in here. I don't think I've ever looked too closely at the animation, so we're going to keep this in slow motion and watch this as he barrels in. Oh my god, that's epic. Boom! There it goes. So what I could have probably done was give him a move order to push all the way through the center and then explode, but that was nonetheless quite impressive. So take a look at that. It was 84 and 103, now it's down to 50 and 33, which is awesome. And then now they're in critical binding. The rest of my cleanup here is going to go well, and they should outright crumble because of that. So I thought that bloated corpse was really cool. I've cleaned up this flank, and then I'm going to come back in the center, help clean up the enemy line, which was looking pretty strong before, but my guys, he really didn't have a good counter against the rotting Prometheans. Sternsmen are in here, and they should be just enough to try and push my guys back, but I'm holding with the raised dead and other units, and now I can circle back around with my other elites. Meanwhile, over here, I've thrown in both of my Terrorgeists against the enemy. The enemy saw that this was not going their way. He attempted to land, and so now he's going to be reinforced by Skeleton Spearmen, Hex Wraiths. He's going to throw everything into my lines. Meanwhile, my Deck Droppers, like I said, are going to be here in close support, and they're just going to be told to snipe away at the enemy. And he's a really big target, which is going to mean it's easy for me to take him out. He's going to take to the skies, and we'll see if that does help him. My Terrorgeists are starting to get a bit low here. Surrounded as they are. Yeah, and he gets a pretty savage breath spell on this Death Streak Terrorgeist, who's going to start to get weak binding, and then soon fairly critical binding as the damage continues to get put on. So I'm going to have to pull around with my fleet captain to try and help him out. Yeah, you can see here, critical binding, attacked in the rear, fading. So the sheer amount of damage put on here is going to be a bit overwhelming. Harkon is going to hold out for a while, but I'm starting to get a little worried about that fight. So here comes my Vampire Fleet Captain. He's going to pop all sorts of abilities, and then he's going to hustle on over to that side of the battlefield to try and get some healing off on my dudes. Meanwhile, over here, my Deck Droppers are going to be the bane of this Von Karstein Lord's existence. Continuing to circle around and sniping at him. So he's going to be forced to land to try and get out of the line of fire. And this is where the mosh pit is taking place. Morngul's, Prometheans, Raised Dead, all sorts of guys in this combat. So the enemy may be able to even the odds up here, but It's not going to be going well with the amount of firepower I'm putting on. And yeah, he's going to try and pull out. He's got 550 health. Couple more shots coming in. Some of them missing. Oh god. But I have 2 units with decent amount of health. He gets another breath attack. Ooh, that shreds the depth guard. And he's going to try and get back into the fight with 228 health. He still has a lot of health on his healing cap that he could get to. But the tide is shifting here. And I can give chase. And I take him out there. So the deck shopper is really proving their worth in sniping the enemy. And then meanwhile, my 2 Terrorgeists are going to be up in the air, healing up. And with that, the enemy army crumbles. So I could have taken on a lot more of the enemy with both my Terrorgeists. Once you get control of the air like this and you snipe the enemy, it should be pretty much game over. And I could have ended this probably a lot sooner had I just Lord sniped, which you may be seeing a bit more in the future. But anyways, that was kind of my take on countering the enemy's build, where you take this traditionally sea-based faction and just vie for control of the air, which you can definitely do. But you got to be careful if the enemy does bring a lot of air units as well. I can quickly snowball because kind of they can easily throw a lot of fellbats, and those can dodge around your Terrorgeists. And had those gotten into my deck shoppers, that would have been a lot of wasted money put into those guys. So you got to be very careful playing this game, but it is something you can pull off, and especially 2 Terrorgeists is going to be really, really hard for the enemy to counter. It's rather rare for them to bring more than 2 Terrorgeists and a couple fellbats, so I was pretty comfortable there. And then when it comes to the ground game, just play it slow and steady. If you're going to go for this build, I would say just for your ground force, don't even mess around with a gun line. Just bring something that's sturdy, Promethean, something that can raise some dead to beef up your lines, and just hold strong, wait for your air force to win and dominate, and then come back and take out the enemy line. So yeah, this flying build is something I may be doing a bit more of in the future against other factions. We'll see how it plays out. I did see something as well in the form of some Lizardmen counter builds, where it was basically a whole force of Sauruses with shields, and the rest was just Chameleon Skinks and Skinks with javelins. I'll have to come up with a counter build for that, but that was really deadly. If you brought a Sky Force like I did, that would have been shredded by that force. So we'll have to see, how the meta shakes out for all these different factions. But anyways, super interesting stuff. Let me know what kind of builds you guys have found worked well, or what you're being countered by in the comments below. I look forward to learning more and more about this. It's always so interesting when new stuff and patches gets introduced into the game's ecosystem. But yeah, that's it for this battle. I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more, and see you in the next one. Peace out.